This morning on BRN, a lifetime of learning. And joining me now to discuss this, Andy Madigan is a director at the SS&C Learning Institute. Andy, so great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's delighted to be here. I've followed the show for a while, really enjoy it.
Yeah, and look, I consider myself, I try to be a lifetime learner. That's what we're going to talk about today, a lifetime of learning. And I want to start off with, a baseline here. When you look at today's business world and job market, is it more competitive than in any other time in the past few decades?
Great question. And yes, it's a resounding yes. So when we look around, globalization's been happening, I suppose, really since the Second World War. And that's changed how everything's been for, more than a few decades. But stemming from that, we've got more and more embedded with different countries. Trade doesn't know any barriers. With the internet, really anyone can be working from anywhere, as we've seen so much from the recent pandemic. That means you're not just competing with people in your city, in your company, you're competing with everyone in the world. So, you know, it's not good enough to just go, oh yeah, I did a degree, I'm qualified, I'm going to have a job. Is there somebody else who's got a degree and has some extra experience or has an extra skill? So yeah, it's much more challenging. And then with the workplace itself, we're seeing technology changing everything. You need to upskill constantly. It's not a case of training as something and working at it for decades. Now you need new skills virtually every year. Definitely, every couple of years, things become obsolete, new products, new skills, new requirements. So yeah, it's a lot more challenging.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us feel that, especially as we age. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But Andy, you talk about technology. Let me rattle off a couple things. AI, artificial intelligence, that's like the flavor of the year. Cybersecurity, new regulations. From the employee perspective, I would think being a lifelong learner has to be a priority.
Definitely. So I've always been a strong believer in lifelong learning, and it's become my career. And the further through my career I've progressed, I've seen that need becoming stronger and stronger. And artificial intelligence is in every headline, on every discussion board at the moment. But it's that constant change. It's not just AI, it's across the board. Everything is changing. Automation that's coming in with and without AI is making some jobs obsolete. It's also creating a vast number of jobs, but those jobs, people can't have been trained in the past for them because the technology is brand new. So it's again lifelong learning, that dedication to constantly upskilling allows you to stay ahead of the curve. It's mentioned cybersecurity. It's a scary world out there, particularly in the IT world. The number of threats that are growing, and then the regulations that are coming in to manage those threats mean that it's absolutely essential to be training yourself all the time. So you have to be a lifelong learner. Seeing GDPR coming in, CCPA. At the moment, we're seeing in the SS&C Learning Institute, we're doing a lot of work to support IAR requirements that are coming in across the US, some states this year, some states next year. And we're just seeing that more and more regulations driven by the cybersecurity threat, driven by the changes in AI. And those new regulations, they always change. And that's where, continuing education is not just a desire by people, it's a requirement by designations, and organizations are realizing that we have to be training our staff every day almost. It's got to be part of the way we think as organizations.
Yeah, and Andy, probably a lot of people out there that are in corporate America or in a job where they are learning probably are asking the question, how do you package this together for career advancement? So you do the continuing education, either online, there are webinars, all sorts of tools, and we'll talk about that as well. A vast curricula. How do you package that together as an employee for that career advancement, for that next job? Because we're all thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen a week from now, a year from now.
That's a hard one. So it's changed a lot. I know when I started in employment, it was all about having a good resume, ideally having experience before you have experience, but at least having qualifications show that you could learn. That's changed now. You still need a resume, but you really need a learning portfolio, I like to call it, where you can demonstrate not just that I did my formal education, in my case, quite a number of decades ago, but also to be able to show this is this is everything I've done since. Here's some case studies of how I've applied my learning. Here's certifications for different designations, CE, and to be able to show all of that together as your portfolio, but also it's really important to show that learning in action, because most companies, they've moved beyond just like a resume listing and he's got this piece of education. It's down to what's he done with it. Has he shown that he's been able to take that learning, taking on the job learning and adapted to show that you are actually a lifelong learner, not somebody who's just building up a long resume listing off different qualifications. You've got to show that you're actually able to put it into practice, and that becomes your learning portfolio, which is what gets you through the door.
That's a new term that I haven't heard before, learning portfolio, but it really makes a lot of sense. Andy, I want to close out this segment of our interview because we're going to have a part 2 that comes tomorrow. But let's talk about how this being a lifetime long learner, it certainly benefits the employee. Talking about how does this benefit the enterprise, the employer, when their employees are continually refining their skills, learning and advancing?
Well, that's really important, because to nurture lifelong learning within an organization is critical to its success. As people go into work, they'll come out after a hard day, tired enough, and then they've got to turn around and do some learning, which is really to benefit the enterprise rather than the individual. The individual is going to grow and succeed in their career, but the enterprise is where the real benefit comes, and it comes through innovation and adaptability. People not being afraid of new technology, new tools, because they're used to being in that state of learning. So, with a child, you show them something new and they're excited. They want to know about it. But you can show somebody in a workplace that they aren't used to learning, trying out new things, that there's that fear that holding back. And it's really just allowing an organization to share those skills, bring the whole team along as things change, to have cross-functional training. So, somebody in one department might decide to do a course that's not tied to the role entirely, but it's tied to the business. And that creates just much more stronger organization. It's building that leadership pipeline. So, you're not ending up with a whole team that are at that entry level. People are studying different areas that are going to prepare them for that next step up. And it's, it really works for the organization in that way. It's a asset. If an organization can build a team that are lifelong learners, it's going to be a strong team, it's going to be resilient, and it's going to work into the future.
And you're going to be able to retain or attract and retain workers, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Andy, as I said, we're going to close out today's conversation, but tomorrow we're going to have part 2. We're going to talk about creating a culture of lifelong learning. Andy, so great to see you, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning.
It's great. Thank you, Jeffrey. Pleasure to be here.
And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, for all the news in one place. Details at our website. And as I said, we're back again tomorrow for part 2 of our conversation with Andy. We're going to pick up the conversation about a lifetime of learning. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.